Okay, I have 4:15. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Crowded at our Selectmen meeting. Roll call: Sam Martin. Here. Martha Eldridge. Here. Rick Morgan's here. Before we delve into the intersection, we have important guests who have showed up, and my understanding is they have cookies with them. So you're going to have to wait just a moment. Come on up. This is from our Schools Out program.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy agenda today for these students. This is our Schools Out Garden Fresh Cooking Club, and we've switched to trimesters this year, so we have longer clubs, and mid-trimester each club is choosing a service project. So they've chosen to bake cookies for the selectmen and are here with cookies. Do you want to bring your cookies up?
And they're garden fresh cookies with pumpkins that they
very nice.
And
thank you very much.
Also, she has a card. You can bring that up to them. And inside the card on the top half, it has a list of all the clubs that Schools Out is offering this quarter or this trimester, and then all the kids' signatures.
Thank you very, very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
This is the garden in front of the school, the little garden. They manage that, and they pick everything from the garden, and they make all kinds of food with it. So,
and also the garden that's over at OCC as well. They worked on too.
That's true.
But the kids were wanting to say what their favorite clubs were. Do we have time for them
to
say that?
Always have time for the children.
All right. So do you want to start? Say your name and what your favorite club is.
My name is Madeline, and my favorite club is Garden Fresh Cooking. My name is Liliana, and my favorite club is Zumba and Tech Time.
I'm Max. My favorite club is Fresh Garden Cooking.
My name's Caitlin. My favorite club is Zumba and Garden Fresh Cooking. My name is Emily, and my favorite club is Tech Time. My name's Bianca. My favorite clubs are Zumba, Garden Fresh, and Lego Club.
My name is Isaac, and my favorite club is Advanced Legos.
Mallory?
My name is Mallory, and my favorite club is Catch Kids.
My name is Emma. My favorite club is Fresh Garden Cooking.
My name is Patrick, and my favorite club is Garden Fresh Cooking.
My name is Keegan, and my favorite club is Lego Club.
My name is Paige. My favorite club is Sports and Games with Low PD.
Very good.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Extra cookies. I don't know. There's a lot more people than we'll leave the rest behind if you want to share.
If you want to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your meeting all.
Thank you.
And say thank you.
For those of you who are here, who are Ossipee residents, this is our Schools Out program, which has been predominantly grant funded for years and years and years and years, with the town contributing about $20,000 a year. We met with Jen just a week or 10 days ago, and you know, like with many things, the federal money is drying up for that program. So we will very likely have an increased request come budget season for the Schools Out program. But I can tell you that this program has been around now for about 14 years, I think, and it is tremendously beneficial. I think they said they have 135 kids every day after school in this program. So get ready to hear from them again. Before we go into any other business, I want to start into the issue of the intersection of 28 and 171. I do want to acknowledge some folks that are here. Kristen, your husband, his first name, sir?
Dave.
Dave. This is Kristen and Dave Correa. Taylor.
Maiden name.
Yeah, Ramsey Taylor was the young girl who was killed in the intersection And it's important that you are here. I applaud the fact that you were at the last meeting. I think it's very important that we continue to put a face to what it is that we're talking about doing down there. Jeb Bradley, our state senator, Representative Marsh, Nelson, and of course, Comeau on the camera. And then we have some folks here from DOT. Gentlemen, I will convey you personally what you probably received in a letter of how very thankful we are for your immediate response to our emergency meeting and the several steps that were taken right after that meeting to try to mitigate what's been going on down at that intersection. We do applaud you, and we thank you very much for listening. It's important. Thank you. So without going, what will happen is on hear from the gentleman, the people from DOT, and anybody who wants to comment, there will be an opportunity. Everybody will get a chance to be heard. If you have a question or a comment, just simply please raise your hand. I'll call on you one at a time when we get to there. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Stamness, Director of Project Development for the DOT. Thanks for having us here today. I also have Mike Dugas here, who's our safety engineer for DOT, and Assistant Commissioner Cass, along with Trent Zanes, who's on our design team. We were here last on Thursday, October 4th, to listen to your concerns about the safety of the intersection and talk, discuss some of the steps that we could take to try to improve safety at the intersection and take those immediate steps. We heard you, as Chairman said, and we took the following steps. So on Friday, the next day, we removed the passing zone on New Hampshire 28, approaching the southern approach to the 171 intersection, in an attempt to slow speeds coming into that intersection. Following Monday, 10/8, we installed transverse rumble strips on both approaches to the intersection on 171. That was really to alert the travelers on 171 of an upcoming intersection and the stop condition. We also installed some brighter LED lamps in the overhead flashing beacons. Later that week, we installed solar-powered flashing beacons to both stop signs on the approaches to 171. And again, this is to alert anybody using the road and coming up to the intersection that it's a stop condition there, and hopefully that helps announce that stop condition along and coupled with the transverse rumble strips. We also we installed speed feedback trailers on New Hampshire 28, again, approaching the intersection. We're, again, doing that to try to get people aware, make people aware of the speeds that they're traveling, and try to get them to slow down coming into the intersection. So those trailer-mounted speed feedback signs will be replaced probably in a month, 6 weeks or so, with post-mounted speed feedback signs that will be installed later on. We had to order them. There'll be some work probably later on this week to do some prep work, but the signs are going to take 4 to 6 weeks to obtain and get them installed. So it'll probably be late November, early December before those go in. While this was going on, we met internally at the DOT to reconsider whether the permanent solution currently planned for the intersection should be something other than a roundabout. We heard the community's desire for the improvement to be either a signalized intersection or a four-way stop. The DOT safety, traffic, and highway design professionals all agreed that a roundabout provided the safest solution for this location, given the character of the two roads. You told us that we needed to take steps to slow speeds on New Hampshire 28. Predominant speed on Route 28 is around 55 miles per hour. New Hampshire, this is really due to the character of the road. New Hampshire 28 is a region connector with long straightaways, good sight distances, and it's fairly undeveloped leading into the intersection. And these road characteristics lead to higher speeds. In order to slow speeds on 28, you must change the character of the road approaching the intersection. Installing a properly designed roundabout changes the character of the road. You must slow down and negotiate the curves. You have no other choice. Traffic signals and stop signs do not accomplish this. Drivers can run stop signs and red lights without slowing down or stopping. There is no guarantee that drivers will stop. For these reasons, in general terms, is why we favor a roundabout. We believe it's the safest solution for this location. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Dugas, who compare and contrast the signals and roundabouts and give you some information about stop signs. And with that, we can answer some questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Mike Dugas. I'm the Highway Safety Engineer for the DOT. I've been here a number of times on different projects. And I'll talk more about the details of a roundabout and how they operate as safe as they do and how that compares to the operations that we would expect to see in the traffic signal. So again, our objective with this improvement is to provide safe and efficient traffic operations at the intersection. And as Peter just mentioned, that it's really important if we're looking to slow down the traffic at the intersection to change the nature of the roadway. That's the most effective way to slow down traffic. Now, in talking broadly about a traffic signal, if we were to signalize the intersection, certainly it would give convenient turns to and from 171 at the intersection. However, some safety concerns would remain because as a driver passing through a traffic signal, when it's green, you have no cause to slow down. Traffic could remain at speed through the intersection. And we also know that at traffic signals, red light running for a number of reasons is always a concern. Whether a person is trying to beat the red light, whether they're simply not observing and properly responding to a red light that's already displayed, red light running is common. And because opposing traffic is crossing paths, severe crashes can still happen. In fact, in a recent year, 2014, there were 2,600 crashes, fatal crashes across the country as signalized intersections. So signals certainly aren't a panacea for solving all the problems that we have here. And now talking about roundabouts, roundabouts came into our toolbox in the last 10, 15 years or so. They're a relatively new creature in the US. They've been in use in other parts of the world for decades. But what we found in implementing roundabouts is that they have proven to be the safest form of intersection traffic control. And as Peter was describing, that because of the nature of the roundabout design, all the traffic passing through the intersection must slow down. There's no other way to pass through the intersection safely. We do that with our design by narrowing the roadway on all the approaches and also curving the travel path of every vehicle. So there is no straight path through the intersection. So all traffic must slow down. And by slow, I mean generally we're designing for a speed of 20 miles per hour within the intersection. Because all the traffic within the intersection is circulating in the same direction, the same counterclockwise flow, there's no possibility of head-on or broadside crashes. The crashes that do happen tend to be minor because, first of all, they're happening at low speed, and they're also happening at shallow angles. And also, because traffic is operating at a much lower speed, many of the crashes that might happen in other circumstances, the traffic is able to stop before that collision even occurs. So those design factors of roundabouts, the slow traffic speed, the curvature in the travel paths, what they relate to in the reduction of crashes, what we see nationwide is about a 37% reduction in crashes comparing roundabouts to other forms of intersection traffic control. However, we see a 75% reduction on average in injury crashes and about a 90% reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes. So as I said, roundabouts have proven to be the most effective and safest form of intersection traffic control. Now, a couple of concerns that we normally face with roundabouts, and you've probably realized this and other ones that you've seen throughout the state, is that we have the challenge of designing the roundabout small enough to slow down the cars and trucks that go through, but also big enough to accommodate the biggest trucks that we still have to accommodate on the state highways. So tractor trailers carrying 53-foot trailers, or even modular homes, oversized loads at times. And so our practice has been to design our roundabouts for those largest trucks. Now granted, it means that the truck needs to slow down to that 20-mile-per-hour speed to be able to safely negotiate those curves. And I would note that our designs have evolved. We've been designing roundabouts at the DOT for about 10 years. And as we've gotten more comfortable with our designs and the dimensions that we need to provide safe traffic operations, we've found that we can make our designs a little bit more spacious now than we used to in the past. So if you drive through the roundabouts that we have, maybe in Plymouth or Meredith, they may feel tight to you as you drive through in your car. But I think if you compare those designs to recent designs that we have in Wears Beach, in Lancaster, a brand new roundabout in Keene, I think you would find that the designs are more spacious, more comfortable to drive through, and we have found generally they're very comfortable for trucks to drive through as well. Another common concern or challenge that we have is plowing roundabouts. And certainly because of the tight curvature of roundabouts, we have to change our practices. And what we commonly do, because the DOT maintains numerous roundabouts throughout the state, what we normally do is plow the roundabouts with a smaller truck. So it's very difficult to plow with our full-size dump trucks and make those tight turns with the plow blade on the ground. However, I would state that any intersection that has extra lanes, perhaps traffic islands, those are all challenges in their own way for snow plowing. And so snowplow challenges aren't unique to roundabouts. I want to keep this brief, and I will let anybody ask questions that you might have about roundabouts, about signals, about anything really. Yes, ma'am.
Have you moved the timing up?
So right now, based on the steps we have to take with design and permitting and all the other steps, we currently plan to advertise this for bids in the fall, November of 2019. A lot of that time.
Another year. So how many more kids have to die? I mean, if this isn't a cry out from everybody in the community saying, get off your asses and do something. I mean, you gotta step it up.
Well, the roundabout is being designed right now. We're about midway through our design.
I understand that you guys don't want to put in the light that we would all prefer to have. The people that live here that have to travel it every day, mind you. What we want doesn't matter, you know, and I mean, couldn't that be done a lot quicker? You're not going to have to buy people's houses out, property out to do a big roundabout. If you're just going to have to put up a set of lights, you just have to do some construction, put up a set of lights. Won't it be a lot quicker? Wouldn't it save us a lot more money in the long run? I'm very confused at why you pushed the roundabout on us, and you're going to make us wait until next November.
Let's not make it a free-for-all, okay? So I understand there's some emotion. I do. But let's try to keep it on. Can you just finish up with what Sam's question was? I believe the question was whether or not, as far as timing, it was one of the things that we had asked this emergency meeting, that whatever you did for a permanent solution, if it could be expedited. And you're saying that it can't be expedited more than what you were already doing.
So I haven't said that yet. So
okay.
A lot of what that timeline provides for is the steps we have to take to legally purchase any property that we need that's impacted by the design. Yeah. So if we can expedite that, and we will certainly try to negotiate every time we have a property index, we negotiate first with the property owner before taking other steps. Which take
my understanding is that the four corners of that intersection, one the state already has control of.
Yes.
Rick Sager was at that emergency meeting and is ready to sign today. Huggins Hospital owns one corner. I would be amazed if that could not be accomplished quite quickly. And one of the things I think that was frustrating to hear from Rick Sager was that he has not even yet been contacted by anybody from the state regarding the purchase of his property. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, can you expedite that process? Because I think everybody there, having lived through these accidents, is ready, willing, and able to get this moving.
Right, and I don't doubt that, and we do plan to take steps to expedite that process. We can't take the final step of making a cash offer for whatever we think the value of the impact is until we've reached a certain point. But we can certainly take steps to make that as fast as possible.
So what are the steps that you have to reach, do you have to take to get to that point?
We are using federal funds on this and most everything else that we do as a department. We need to finish our environmental review before we can then make offers for property purchases.
Environmental review takes up what? Does it entail?
Reviewing the impacts that our design has upon cultural resources, such as historic properties and things similar to that, or natural resources, wetlands and other natural features.
Is there, now that is done obviously by another state agency, DES, I would
Yes.
presume. And I guess this might be a question, Jeb, is there a way, and I realize, listen, I understand with, especially with federal money, there are strings attached to everything and I's need to be dotted, T's need to be crossed, but is there a way that DES's review of that could also be expedited?
I would imagine that, you know, Bill, myself, Ed, even Governor Sununu, you know, raised that kind of issue with, you know, Bob Scott, the commissioner of DES. It could be expedited, but I mean, it would, just sitting here and listening to the discussion, I mean, you've got all of the folks in this room, and I think the select board wanting a traffic light, DOT wanting a roundabout. I mean, that issue has to be settled first. And I think, you know, I don't want to speak for Bill and Bill, but, or Ed, but I think we're here, certainly I am, to support, you know, whatever the select board, which is representative of the folks, you know, here in Ossipee, want us to try to pursue. That would need to be, I would think, resolved first and foremost before, you know, we're able to try to expedite permitting on a roundabout or some other solution. But trust us, we will work as soon as there is a plan that everybody's bought off on. You can count on us to expedite the permitting.
I'm going to take a little further this Cameron, just to try to convey to you where I stand and what our position has been on this. I have personally been involved in an intersection for more than 35 years. I was a member of the rescue squad back in 1979. I'm a life member of the fire department. I spent 23.5 years on the police department. I've been to more intersections in that accidents in that intersection, excuse me, than I care to remember, and I remember them all. I have been of the opinion that the four-way traffic light was the best solution. I will tell you that I am an old dog who has been taught a bit of a new trick, and I have come around very much to the thoughts of a roundabout, much for the reasons that Mike just explained. If you think of the dynamics of many of the accidents that have occurred in this intersection, it involves somebody not stopping for a stop sign. Okay, now there are a myriad of reasons why that can happen, whether it's distraction, whether it's sight distances, whether it's on and on and on. But remember back to the central figure that they did not stop for a stop sign. To do a four-way signaled intersection, we're then going to depend that they're always going to stop for a stop light. I'm not convinced that that's true. The thing that I like about the idea of a roundabout, and the reason that I have come around to it, is because it will, in fact, cause everybody to slow the hell down. Just a minute. What we have been experiencing in this intersection are high-speed T-bone accidents, okay? They are the most non-survivable accidents, second only to headlight crashes. They're the worst. If we have a signaled intersection and another Ramsey doesn't stop at the stop sign, then we're all going to be sitting back here pointing at those guys saying, we need to do something. I've come around a lot, it took a lot to convince me. But I do believe that the roundabout slowing everybody down. Are they a pain in the ass for trucks? Absolutely, they are. Are they going to be a pain in the ass to plow snow around? Absolutely. But by getting everybody in all four directions to slow down, I gotta believe that that's going to stop us from killing anybody else in that intersection. When you have an intersecting roads, you will have accidents. You'll have fender benders, you'll have rear end collisions, you'll have them all. I'm not saying you won't have more intersections down there, more accidents down there. What I'm suggesting is, I am more and more convinced that the roundabout will stop us from having fatal and the horrific maiming accidents that we've had in that intersection over the years. Sir.
I'll agree with you on a roundabout. So we're all the same on that. But that's not what people here are talking about. What they're talking about is between now and the time the roundabout gets put in, which you know, I know, and those guys that were just up here a short time ago, it's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in 2 years. It's going to take 3 to 4 years before they actually get it in. It always works that way. Government is government is government. It's the same no matter what. They've got to deal with state, federal, local. It's going to slow it up. No matter how you try to do anything, it's going to slow up. It'll be a drag out. It'll continue to slow up. In the meantime, people are still going to get hurt. Why don't we put something that's simple in place until then? It might help a little bit. We have rumble strips on 171. We have nothing on 28 of the 2 signs that are flashing radar, which, I don't know if you've been around, Cruiser's been there, there's plenty of tickets handed out. It's not slowing them down. There's just another accident with a rollover at that intersection. 4-way stop right now until they can put in the roundabout. I don't think anyone here would disagree. That's the simplest thing. Will it stop all? No. Will it stop a hell of a lot? Yes, it will. And that's all we're asking for people to do right now, is to put a 4-way stop in, because even if it's a 4-way stop, people do still slow down on 28 for 4-way stop. They may not stop, but it may be slow enough not to kill the next person that goes through that intersection.
A couple of quick things. First of all, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. If we were starting today, I think your 4-year projection would be probably about accurate. We didn't start this today. We actually, this board has been working with the state now for, I'm going 2.5, about two and a half years trying to get this to there. We've already been through a bunch of meetings. That's how we got to the roundabout. So we're not starting today. It has been going on, and I agree with you. And that was the reason of the emergency meeting, was what steps can we take until that permanent solution is there. So that brings up a question that he just raised. Is there a way of doing temporary traffic lights? If ultimately the decision is...
Stop signs.
Okay.
With rumble strips on 28. To do the same thing you did on 171 on 28. That's simple. That's all I think anyone here is asking for, is immediate stop signs on 28.
Can that be done on a temporary basis?
Until you roundabout.
Presuming that the roundabout is in fact the way that you go.
We'd be very concerned that putting a stop sign right on Route 28 is going to have more, it's going to create more problems than it's going to solve. Traffic isn't expected to stop.
Rumble strips on 28 and the stop sign, same as 171. Same warning on both, then why'd you bother doing anything on 171?
The idea of the rumble strips on Route 71 was because some of the accidents that have been happening have been people going through the stop sign, either not seeing it or not paying attention, or going through the intersection,
okay,
or not stopping. And whether it was because,
and whether it's because slowed down, wouldn't that in fact eliminate some of the
big
issues?
concern I have is that on Route 28, most people are not expecting to see a stop sign in the middle of the through road.
Okay.
And seeing that, having that there with rumble strips, I think they could create more problems and more accidents on Route 28, as well as create a situation on 171 where people are coming up, they know there's, if a stop sign is there, that there's a stop sign on Route 28, and proceeding, assuming that somebody's going to stop because there's a stop sign there. I think it could create more problems.
You never assume someone's going to stop, period, because that's just the nature of the beast.
Pardon?
You never assume someone's going to stop. I don't.
Well, I mean, the accidents that we've had happen today have been people not stopping at 171. So my concern is if we put a stop sign on Route 28, that you're going to have you're going to have more people, there's going to be more problems with people potentially violating that.
Do you think people are going to go through full speed on 28?
I mean, I already know big truck speed. It's already been
Right now, the speed limit's 40.
Then no one abides by it.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
So why, that's what I'm concerned about.
So
why
that's
do
the
you
reason why we
concern that
have
if you
a
put a
stop
stop
sign?
sign,
Because you're
most they're going to abide by that?
Time out.
Okay, I'm not trying to attack you.
No, I'm
One
not.
person.
I'm trying to.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. But I don't think you're catching, we're saying do the exact same thing you did to 171 on 28. You've already got the police enforcement there. Why do you feel that a stop sign is not going to at least curb some of the people from going through at 50 miles an hour?
But I think in fairness, I think you just answered that.
Yeah.
And I know you don't agree.
If-
Hold on.
Yeah.
We're gonna do.
What does he show me that proves his point?
Okay, listen.
There's nothing to prove his point.
We're gonna do this orderly, one
I've
person
been
at a
orderly.
time. Ma'am.
My name's Terry Frazier Hooper. I've driven that road back and forth twice a day for over 20 years. I catch myself now with the flashing number sign with speed. And I'm a very careful driver, very slow driver, but generally I see them maybe 47 or 48. The rumble strips, I agree 100%. I think that would be effective now. Whether the stop signs could be put there or not would be, a question, but the rumble strips would definitely slow people down. You have no idea unless you're on that road how fast people go. And I would prefer to see the stop sign over the roundabout, but I can understand exactly what you're saying, that is a safety factor. But we need something now, and rumble strips could be done before the winter is here, possibly stop signs. But I think you should really need to hear from all of us that travel that road, and
No, we know speeds are there. Now, I mean, with some of the things that we have put up, the flashing beacon, we've enhanced the flashing beacon, the flashing beacon on the intersection warning sign ahead that was put in last year, the driver feedback signs to try to flash things. Maybe we had talked about the idea of transverse rumble strips on 28. Previously, one of the concerns was that where they would be, where that driver feedback sign is, for example, or where the intersection warning sign is I don't know, 1,000, 1,200 feet ahead of the intersection. So one of the debates we were having internally is how effective would they be? Typically, coming into like a toll booth or something, there's usually, it's areas like that where there's a dramatic change that you want to catch a driver's attention to. And maybe that is something we could consider, putting transverse rumble strips at the top of the hill where the blinking light is and where the driver feedback speed sign is to grab people's attention there.
At least be immediate,
with the
because
sign.
as soon as you hit one of those rumble strips, as you're crossing the yellow line, you're aware of it. So it wouldn't take a truck too many times to hit those strips and know that they need to slow down.
Yeah.
I hope that you will consider.
Has the driver feedback, I mean, in your experience, the driver feedback signs have only been up since the day after the meeting we're here. I don't know if that...
You don't even see it.
Pardon me?
At night, you really don't see it.
You have to be on top of it for your speed to actually show
Typically,
up.
they put a light around the speed limit sign, and then the radar is flashing. At nighttime, you cannot even see that unless you're looking for it.
You can't see that if it's blinking, your speed is
you see
60
that,
or something?
but you don't see the speed. The 40 part is too hard to see. There's no lights on it. It's not illuminated. So if you put lights around that, yes.
You don't see that
the
speed limit is supposed to be 40?
Right, that's what
Until you're right
that's the part
on
you're missing.
Until you're right on it. Okay. Well, that's something we can take
And I've
some
seen that
action
in
on and see.
other signs.
It's
Yes,
pretty
that
dull.
is a
It's
big
like
thing that I saw
yellow.
being different. Because I was looking for it.
Yeah.
When I was told it was first out there. I didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw the flash of the radar.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, geez, I could barely see the
You gotta
sign that
back
said
up
it
to
was
see
40.
what you were doing.
Huh.
And that was a
Even
big
though I know
attraction.
there's a sign ahead that says, there's a yellow diamond warning sign that speed limit reduced 40 miles
If that was
ahead.
lit up,
Then there's a 40 mile an hour
lights.
sign, and then there's also the trailer mounted sign there as well, too.
The radar sign, if that had the 40 mile an hour lit, would make a huge difference.
Okay.
That I will say, because I've seen it other places, and it draws my eye to it
Yeah.
at night. Daytime, yes, you can see it, it's not a big deal. Nighttime, you don't see it.
Okay. All you see is the flashing your
said
speed is.
Your speed, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
1 minute, I had a lady.
Maybe the reflectivity of that. checked or something, yeah.
Well, I've been wondering about why there weren't rumple strips on each side of 28 as well. So I was noticing them on the 171, right? But not, and I kept wondering why they weren't there, because I feel like they would catch our attention. And I think that everyone in this room knows that somebody has recently died. But if I was just traveling through, I wouldn't. And I would just keep speeding up, not knowing. And then I was also wondering, is it too expensive to put lights in the meantime? And then put the traffic circle in after? So if you're saying that the stop sign wouldn't work, would lights work? Or is it too expensive?
One of the concerns I have, that we have with a stoplight there is that providing false security to the folks on 171, that is like I said, we're trying to knock down speed, we're trying to control speed. Our concern is putting up a traffic signal there where it hasn't been, where it's not typically expected, and having traffic on 28 disregarding that and having maybe more problems created with people on 171 coming up, seeing they get a green light, assuming that the traffic is going to stop, and not having it stop.
I hear what you're saying, because it does give a false sense of security. Yeah. But anytime that new traffic lights have gone in, I remember when they come in and I think, oh, there's a light. And I'll almost go through them as well. But then you get used to it and then everybody's safer. So anytime you put lights in, that's a concern. I mean, we've seen them at all the intersections whenever they've come in here.
Right. I mean, we have triple, or at least double flashers over the intersection as well too. We changed those LEDs to make them brighter because of the concern that they fade into the background. The other thing on that intersection, and we see in other intersections, when it's predominantly green, because there isn't as much traffic on 171 as at other intersections like 28 and Route 16. If the light is predominantly green on 28, the fact that people are expecting it to almost be green all of the time, and you have minor amounts of traffic on the small road, on the minor road coming to trip that, there's a proclivity to have the traffic on the main road disregard that. That's one of the concerns that we have with just installing a traffic signal there. We had and I heard what some of the comments here were about. That the state wants to put a roundabout there. We think it's the best and the safest solution there. That's what we really think after doing all this analysis, because of the character of the road, the amounts of volume on the four legs, and trying to slow all of the traffic down coming through that. We think that a roundabout will be the safest solution. We had a very horrific accident, if you know, Route 4 in Durham, Route 4 in Madbury Road, just heading east of the village, going towards Dover and Newington, and that has a fully signalized intersection there. It's been prone to have accidents as the through traffic. Even we've extended the yellow, we've extended the green time, we've extended the all red at the intersections, and we still have had situations where we've had traffic on Route 4 coming into and having some very serious accidents there. To the degree that the town of Durham has asked us to look at a roundabout at that location because of the number of accidents there. So I mean, those are some of the concerns that we have with just putting up signals on Route 28. So,
sir, this gentleman's next.
Yes, I would just like to address this. In some ways, a professional. My background is law enforcement. I come from another state. I was the commander of a traffic bureau at one point in time, so I've dealt with these issues. And the one thing that no one has said one word about is compliance and enforcement. Enforcement will assist in achieving compliance. And the other thing is, I want to ask, Do you have a recorder in those radar detector devices to say what the speeds are of the oncoming cars? I know you don't have anything in the intersection area that says when anybody slowed down. And that's one of my concerns, that we need that information in order to be able to state that people are or are not compliant with that warning. So that information can then assist with enforcement for the understanding. It's the mere fact that people are or are not going to slow down sufficiently to be in compliance. And that's all we ask for. Just get those trucks to slow down and the others, and we will be moving in the right direction, at least initially. But compliance means enforcement, and there's 3 agencies that can help to deal with that. And I haven't seen them there, and I live right there.
They've been out there every day.
I live right there, and I live 3 houses away from them, and I haven't seen enough of it.
So what is the benefit of putting in a roundabout versus the traffic lights? I'm just wondering, because I know that some roundabouts cause more problems putting them in than
Depends if you just have 10 minutes telling them why they want to slow everybody down. Somebody over here.
I can talk to that.
When you come off of 16 onto 28, the speed goes up to 55 miles an hour. I think that could be some of the problem. It's only for a short period of time. I'll say a mile. I don't know exactly. But maybe if that speed was down to maybe 45, coming and then go into the 40, maybe that would limit people. You know, when they see 55, they're going 60. Let's face it, it's the truth. And it just seems like such a short space of mileage that there's no need for 55 miles an hour on that. And coming from Wolfboro coming towards 16, again, it's 55 going down to 40. Maybe there should be a 45 in there somewhere. Get people to start slowing down before they get to the 40 in the intersection.
Okay, right here.
So with the rumble strips, great idea of being on 171. I'm happy about that. But on 28, are rumble strips really going to help? Because the big truck drivers have bigger tires. Bigger tires don't feel the rumble strips as much as a normal car does. I know plenty of people that are truck drivers. They go on 171, those rumble strips don't faze them because they don't even really feel them there. They feel a little minor thing, but nothing significant enough to slow them down. So putting them on 28, I don't know, for the truck driver aspect, really is going to amount too much. For cars, though, it'd make a big difference.
Okay. What about the month of June when all the motorcycles are out there? It's one of the worst things you can hit is a rumble strip with motorcycles. And a lot of these bikes travel in groups. And once they get in there, they get tangled up. There's going to be a massacre on there.
That would be a concern. I know the one saving grace. I think the motorcycles and I don't know if you have anybody here is a motorcyclist. I'm not, but I think they deal better.
I'm familiar with it.
Do you deal better with the transverse ones cut straight across than the ones that are? I know when we no. Still a problem.
I'd rather go over what we have now on 171.
Say that again.
I'd rather it be exactly like it is that you guys just got into 171. I know
Those are the ones
people
that
ride
talk
here. Crystal?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few of us that ride here.
Yeah.
And again, I think it automatically goes back to the same thing. I'd rather the rumble strips than some of the other outcomes.
Sure. No, I think my point was
I mean,
I think rumble strips for motorcycles are easier than.
I do know a few of us that ride that.
Okay.
I would much rather go over them the way they are than as opposed to something else. Otherwise you're going to eat the side of my tire, then I'm going to go down. There's many things.
I have a question. So if they're not slowing for that 45 sign that's there, the flashing sign that's there, could you put the rumble strips after that sign? So if they're not slowing there, they're going to hit those, and their heads are going to come up, and they're going to say, "Oh, something's coming."
What's coming?
Yeah,
what's coming? So
well,
typically you.
Slow down. I mean, I slow down when I get rumble strips.
The rumble strips on 171 get your attention, and you look ahead and you can see the stop signs, the flashing beacons. They alert you to the fact that something's
But
coming.
there's still a flashing light up there. You'll
Yeah.
see that, you'll know
Yeah.
that there's something coming up. I mean, at least it alerts you there's something coming up. But if they're not gonna pay attention to that sign, and they're gonna speed through it, then when they hit those rumble strips, they're gonna slow down.
I also want to make one quick observation, and I think that we also need to remember that this is not about them, and it's not about they. The sad truth of it is, the last 5 people killed in that intersection were all locals. Okay, 4 of them happened to be from Wakefield and then Ramsey. These aren't people who didn't know the area. They're not people that didn't know the intersection. I mean, I'm all for thinking about, the person that never has been through the intersection too. But the people involved in a lot of these accidents live here. We know that today, for whatever reason, call it, whether it's distraction or sight distances, all of the other things that can come into play. They've been locals. They've been our people that have been hurt and killed.
What are your statistics on roundabouts? How many fatalities?
Mike, you'd gone through some of that earlier.
So in New Hampshire, none that I know of. There are about 40 or so roundabouts in the state. About 10 of those in round numbers are DOT owned. So most of the roundabouts in the state aren't DOT owned. It's cities and towns, even private owners have the roundabouts. So as far as I know, there were no fatalities in New Hampshire's roundabouts. I know there was one fatality in a roundabout, but it wasn't related to the roundabout. It was a medical condition that happened at the roundabout by coincidence.
Say that again, please.
One person died in a roundabout in Peterborough.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry.
Can you say it louder?
Yes. So one person died in a roundabout, as far as I know, in Peterborough, but it wasn't related to a traffic incident. It was a medical incident that happened right there. So as far as I know,
how many?
So as far as I know, there have been no fatal crashes in roundabouts in New Hampshire.
Wow.
Granted, it's a small number still. We don't have that many in the state.
Right.
Somebody else?
Thank you.
I'm just going to get, I understand where you're saying a light's not going to work. I just don't understand the signs. Putting simple stop signs, rumble strips, changing the ambers to red, and possibly even putting in a slower speed limit there, 30. All those things, you can combine any way you want to combine things, but a solution now, as opposed to waiting for the roundabout. I have no problems with the roundabout. I just know it's not going to be done tomorrow. Everything I'm talking about can be done within a week. What's wrong with doing that as a temporary stopgap? If it saves one person, it's done its job, right?
Yep. No, I mean, we've tried to do some of those temporary stopgaps with putting that enhancement of the speed signs and stuff up there. I mean, you just said put a 30-mile-an-hour sign up there. We've got 40. It's down from 50. You had mentioned you could post it at 45 instead of 55. It's posted at 40 now. If you're coming from Route 16, there's a sign that says 40 miles an hour, change ahead. It's a big diamond sign that warns of the changing speed limit. Then we have the speed limit change to 40 miles an hour. We have the driver feedback signs there, and we're still having trouble getting people to comply. So I don't know why.
That's why I'm saying put a stop sign in. And really have to comply a little more.
My concern with that, as I said, is getting people to comply, especially on a road like Route 28, where it's not anticipated at all that is going to be a stop condition, and having the problems associated with that.
I understand what you keep on saying, it's not anticipated. But yet, we're talking about putting in amber lights to red, changing the speed limit down so that they're knowing something's coming, rumble strips, signs, plus what you've already put in. What more would require to be anticipated?
Yeah. I just think it'd be a real problem having a stop sign on Route 28.
As opposed to someone going through there 50 miles an hour while someone else is trying to...
Well, we're trying to slow them down from going through 50 miles an hour and alert them.
But a stop sign stops them.
Intersection.
At least the majority of the time, the majority of the people actually slow down or stop. Even if they do a roll through, they're not doing it full speed.
All right, with
That's all I'm saying.
With fairness, I think you've made your point. Bill?
Thank you. How about just a sign that says dangerous intersection ahead on Route 28? It would seem it would be cheap, put it up, at least people would be alerted. Hey, we got a problem coming up, we better be extra careful.
That's a good idea. Or deadly intersection. It's going to hold them accountable. Yeah, it's going to hold DOT.
We could look at that. Those are things that have been put in other areas, and the experience has been that signs are not the most effective thing. We're finding that, like I said, I go back to the speed limit signs. We're doing things with lights and flashing beacons to emphasize that there is an intersection here, that there is a speed limit change, that there is something here. You know, we can look at that and see if that communication would help. I'm just not sure that, you know, one more additional sign is going to make that much of a difference.
Sir?
Who's going to make the final decision on this and when, as far as obviously the town is discussing it here? The state is obviously involved. Somebody is going to finally say, put their thumb on this and say, yeah, we're going to do it. It sounds like yourself, are you going to be the final authority, or is it going to be somebody above you making the final authority on this?
On the roundabout or the selection? Yeah, I mean, it will be the department. I mean, the commissioner has already weighed in. I answer to the commissioner. Commissioner answers to the governor. We've already weighed in that we think that, and that's why we're here tonight to talk about that, we think the roundabout is the safest solution and saying why. So we're looking to proceed forward with that. We can I don't know if you have a decision to make now. We can come back with the more detailed plans. I heard your concerns about the timing, and we do need to expedite the delivery of that project. We have the plans in pretty good shape. It does need to go through the federal environmental approval process, and that is in process. But we can be meeting, I know you had said Hutchin Hospital in the other corner, but one of the corners, nobody has approached them yet. We can sit down with those people, you know, tomorrow or next week with the plans we have and explain to them, make sure, and we can find out if there are any objections, if there are things, and start that, at least dialogue with the property owners sooner, and find out if we can, if there isn't going to be objections, if they're on board, we can push that forward and expedite it sooner. So we can take some of those steps.
What kind of roundabout are you putting in? Like, I'm just asking, like, in the middle, are you guys having a flat one, or are you guys going to actually have stuff in the middle? Because I know some of those flat ones, people just go straight through them and don't even care.
Yeah, so that's a good point, because with the roundabout design, you end up with an area of maybe sometimes 50 or 60 feet in diameter that you could do whatever you want with. So we'd like to make that so it makes the intersection more visible. So put landscaping or grade it so it is visible and it's not hidden to the driveway.
Ma'am?
How long would it take you to put in a four-way traffic light at that intersection and put warning signs north and south on 28 that there's a light coming up? There's other intersections around the state that have lights that you're not sure it's there, and it says, be prepared to stop, traffic light ahead. Is that something you could do? Put a traffic light in there with warning signs that it's coming?
You're talking for temporary or for a permanent solution?
I'd like it for permanent, but if we can't do it for permanent, is it something we can do right away until we get the roundabout that they seem to want?
In fairness, the concern is that you're going to continue to have accidents, that it's not going to change anything. Sir, I believe you were next.
Well, she mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to. I wanted to know if it was a stop sign, how long before that could be done. If it was some kind of a red light, how long that could be done. And then I might have another comment. So
I'm not sure. They could probably be done pretty quick. I don't know if there are signals and stuff. Stop signs we probably have in stock, but
is that something that could be done within a couple of months? Is that realistic or not realistic? I don't know.
It's I would say a qualified. It's probably realistic. There are some other things with winter coming on, whether there be pavement markings or things associated with that that would need to be figured out.
Now, you made a statement earlier that, I mean no disrespect, it absolutely made no sense to me. You made a statement, something to the effect that if you put a red light in there, people aren't going to stop because they don't know it's there. I just became a resident of this town 2 weeks ago. I drive all over New England. I don't know what's ahead, but I stop. So that statement to me, sir, with all due respect, is not even logical.
I didn't mean to be. I didn't mean it would be that they wouldn't stop. There could be a tendency to have problems with that there, because being a new signal on a high-speed road with little approaching traffic and creating a false sense of security for the people coming to 171. They come up, they see a green light, and they go, and they're not looking, and if there's traffic that flows through the red light.
As this gentleman here said earlier. But
I just say that's our concern, that putting up a traffic signal would result in more, maybe of a different type, but could create more problems than we're trying to solve. Create more accidents, maybe of a different type, rear end accidents and things like that, but that's our concern.
Would it be more survivable though? You're saying it would be a different type of accident. Would they be more survivable?
I don't think you need to be high-speed people. In fairness, the concern, and I want to try to wrap this up to try to get to some sort of a consensus. The concern that I have been convinced about is that the lights will work if everybody stops. Everybody hasn't already stopped for stop signs. That is the concern. I'm more interested now in trying to get a consensus for these gentlemen on what is the final solution. I'll be honest with you, I have been sold that if we really want to eliminate the serious accidents down there, that the ultimate end game probably should be a roundabout. I am, because it's going to make everybody slow down. If we can get to that, then we can work with our elected officials on getting this sped up. Jeb.
So let me ask sort of the scheduling, and if the consensus coming out of this evening and maybe a subsequent select board meeting, realistically, Bill, if everything is expedited, and I think you've heard the need for being expedited, and I think what you've done already has helped the situation. There's no question about that. I travel that road all the time, and seeing the flashing signs, I think that show me what my speed is very helpful. But setting that aside, if the final decision is a roundabout, what do you need to expedite it so that it can get into the construction season for next summer, so it's completed in calendar year 2019? My sense is that, in listening to both of these meetings, there's, a preference probably for a light, but I think, unless I'm wrong, people could live with a roundabout, but they want the safety issues addressed ASAP. So that is my question of what can we do to help you if you need projects moved around in the 10-year plan to make that happen?
It's not moving projects around. We have the funding in the HSIP program. I think in 2019 the money would be there. The biggest thing right now in Mike's schedule is kind of predicated on right-of-way. So if we needed a public hearing and needed to acquire right-of-way, if everybody is willing and we can negotiate, we could try. We could probably. I'd like to refine a schedule, but what we had talked about, I had asked that question there. We felt comfortable that we could get something out by midsummer, maybe sooner.
Construction started or construction?
Construction started.
Construction started.
Midsummer. So backing it, you had said November of 2019. Backing it up about 4 or 5 months to get something advertised for construction in May or June, and that's predicated on if we can get. If we can negotiate the right-of-way, and maybe that will, and I heard you say one of the people hasn't been met with. We can go out and meet with them very soon and find out if they do have concerns, and we can meet with them. There is I think we've looked at a very sliver of right-of-way, and outside of that, it's like slope easements to take care of the grading and stuff. So maybe we can negotiate in good faith and get something expedited.
And what, I mean, other than negotiating with 4 parties, obviously Mr. Sager said he was, good to go, and I think Rick, you indicated that another party was good to go.
Well, one of them the state already owns.
State owns, and I don't know if Bill maybe be able to update. He's a trustee of Huggins.
Yeah, I'm a trustee of Huggins. I'm quite certain we could get the hospital expedited. The hospital's more people buying at that intersection. I think we all know that. Legally, the board would have to vote on it. We meet on a monthly basis, the last Thursday of the month. But you know this, Mike, that I'm willing to, with you, meet with the people at the hospital prior to that so we can get everything organized, and then it just gets rubber stamped at a trustees meeting. I don't think that's going to be very...
They'd have to change the driveway.
They'd have to change the driveway, that's correct. But these things are all part of the project. I told them they'd have to change the driveway when this plan came up at meeting at your office, which was last fall, I believe. So you were aware about the doctor's office driveway.
So I guess that would be, what we would promise you, and maybe it's coming back in another meeting to review in detail the plan, but we could look to expedite that. We can take the plans we have and meet with sounds like the hospital and some others are involved, but the person that hasn't been met with yet, and try to move that along. In the meantime, I know we did talk about, we can look again at the I'd really like to see if people think that what we've done to date has been effective and made some headway into slowing things down. We can look at the transverse rumble strips on Route 28. That would be another incremental step forward to take, and we'd be willing to do that. We did talk that if we couldn't deliver so we could start construction next year, there may be some other while waiting for the roundabout, some other construction type of elements that could be put into place along 28, barrels or cones or delineators to further emphasize the intersection. I know certainly summer months the traffic is higher. Those things aren't appropriate during the winter, during winter maintenance season, but if we get into sometimes that we can't get something out early next year, there could be some interim measures as Memorial Day and the higher traffic seasons come up to put, some barrels, some cones, some other construction type of things along 28 to emphasize the intersection.
The other thing, real quickly too, and maybe a combination of a couple of things that were suggested tonight. To get the transverse rumble strips, one of the concerns you had on 28 was, what are the rumble strips for? What are they going to see? Well, then do the dangerous intersection ahead sign with a flashing light immediately after the rumble strips. So you get the rumble strips, then you're getting the dangerous intersection ahead. That may be the signal that that you need on 28.
I have to say I was not convinced about the roundabout, but when I listened to them talk about the speed on 28, I think you're going to just exchange one problem for another. I think you're going to have rear-end collisions on both sides of 28, people not knowing that it's there and somebody stopped. So I think the roundabout, I was not convinced of this last meeting, but I am convinced of it now.
Gentleman over here.
I really value the data. When you started talking about roundabouts, I was interested to find out, well, is that true that it's better and safer? And if the data you shared is true and accurate, boy, all of a sudden I'm sold on it. I really appreciate the flashing sign. I don't travel that section very, very often. But lately, when I have, I've found that I travel too fast. I'm going faster than I'm supposed to, and I really appreciate the opportunity to self-regulate that, knowing that the officers in the room have every right to pull me over and regulate it for me if I'm not doing a good job. And I also value the information that you just shared that was not known to me before showing up, that most of the devastating accidents have been people who live here. And I think that's important. I drive around New England all the time too, and I'm pretty good at stopping at a red light when it's there. And I'm pretty good at navigating a rotary that I happen to find. I didn't know that it was coming, but there it is. If it's something about local folks who are familiar with the roads, and maybe that's something that we can keep in mind. Word travels fast when it's clear that there's someone who's going to be pulling people over there for a period of time. That word travels in town that, hey, we better watch out. There are folks that are pulling people over. The last thing I value is that you're here and you're trying to take good care of the roads, and that you're here and running this meeting, and everyone here is caring about what's happening. No one wants anyone else to die. I think that's an important thing, and I think that's great. I wish we could have a little bit of data that supports your inclination to think that stoplights or something. It seemed to me that you were saying we just don't think it's going to matter, but to listen to the gentleman in the front, who is, my guess is he joins me and, all right, what's the data on that, or is it just your gut that tells you that? I don't see why it would be too difficult that, all right, we're going to do the roundabout, and until then, we're going to try a stoplight. Most people slow down at stoplights. All right, you're not going to get everybody, but most people slow down, and if most people do that, isn't that better than just leaving it for another year and a half or 2 or 3 or however many months or years it might be? I don't see any harm by creating conditions where everybody needs to slow down a little bit. So I appreciate your experience, but I'm not sold on your, well, I just don't think, or it's not my sense that, blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
So, I have 2 things. One is, even if we change the speed, going from Wolfboro to 16, the big trucks ain't gonna stop. They don't slow down. They're trying to go up that hill. Proven fact, again, I know plenty of people that drive big trucks. All they're trying to do is go up the hill. So we can drop the speed down to 30. When it comes to the big trucks, they just know they want to get up that hill and not have to downshift. And the lights and everything else, a stop needs to be put there just temporary. See, just maybe temporary, try it. You know, it doesn't hurt to try something. Because even if we slow down, again, they're not going to slow down. If we put a stop sign there or a stoplight, they're going to have to stop. They don't have a choice. Put more reinforcement there. So we have our flashing lights right now. That's great. Happy for it. But it's not going to do a damn thing if there's no reinforcement there saying, hey, either A, we're going to take a picture of your license plate, send you a ticket because you're speeding. Or B, there's going to be cops sitting there, and let them know that you're going to be sitting there. Because after a while, if we have a cop that sits there for a few days, tags everybody that goes through their speeding, that's going to go around like the other guy was saying, word of mouth. Hey, there's a cop sitting there, he's going to tag you, you make sure you slow down. But until something like that happens, there's not going to be much of a change. No matter how many flashing signs or, you know, big signs we put up, nothing's going to change unless bigger drastic changes happen first.
Okay.
So Rick, are you looking for consensus from the people that are
I'm going
here
to
in
show
attendance
I'm going
as
to
to what the options are and
Correct.
what you would then direct the town and all like that? Because to me, the statistics about no fatalities involved with rotaries, you know, I should say roundabouts, like that, to me, as an individual concerned with safety as a commissioner of the West Ossipee Fire Precinct, to me, it's a no-brainer that we default to safety. If it slows down the flow of traffic, you know, momentarily during certain times of the day, I think it's a very small price to pay.
Amen.
So I know you said something about if we put a stoplight in, that's going to put a risk in for rear-end collisions. But if we put a roundabout in, doesn't that still bring up the risk for rear-end collisions because you have to yield for people?
As long as you have internet, you will absolutely have access. That's non-debatable. The question is, are they going to be high speed? Are they going to be low speed? Are they going to be rear enders, or are they going to be headlight to headlight? You're going to have accidents. The point that he makes is that in a roundabout, the angle, because everybody is already at an angle, and the low speeds, they're not likely, they're definitely not likely to be fatal, and they're very extremely unlikely to even hurt anybody. I don't care how many cars we dent. I mean, I don't think that's why any of us are here. There are going to be accidents. The issue is, are they going to be survivable accidents? Bob?
Just, I know you were looking for some stats a little earlier as far as backing up the data. Just a quick Google search on statistics on roundabouts shows that of the studies that have been done, there's about a 75 to 80% reduction in injury-related crashes at a roundabout versus intersection, versus stoplight four-way intersections. As a wise old chief once told us, after we dent a cruiser or two, that they make car parts every day, and we'd much rather replace car parts because you can't replace the drivers. So it's statistically proven.
Listen, I want to try to bring this together to two different areas. One, I'd like, by a show of hands, a consensus on the issue of the roundabout versus traffic light. Then, I want to work with our elected officials to try to expedite whatever that permanent solution is going to be. And let's make it very, very clear, it's not our say. From the get-go, we have about 70-odd miles of Ossipee Town Road that we are definitely responsible for. This isn't ours, this is theirs. We have tried to use what bully pulpit we have to force the state to make some changes down there on all of our behalfs. But it's not our road. Ultimately, it is their responsibility, and ultimately it is their decision. I appreciate that they have come, they have listened. That emergency meeting, they took, listen, I've been around a long time. Nothing happens in state government in 3 or 4 days, and yet it did. And they deserve our thanks, and seriously, our thanks for that. So I'm thankful that they're here. I want to work with our elected officials to try to speed this up, whatever that final solution is. And I hope, and I believe, because they did take the recommendations from that first meeting, that they've heard you on some of the other recommendations for what happens now until that is constructed. Fair? So, by a show of hands, how many people here support the installation of a roundabout as the final solution? And how many people, by a show of hands, would rather have a signal intersection? Pretty convincing.
It's a playground.
So let me just add this to the debate about traffic lights versus roundabout. I think the department's already made a recommendation. You'd be looking to us to override that recommendation with legislation. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. Is it definite? I can't promise anything like that. What I can promise you, though, is if any of the 4 of us who are here filed that legislation, you'd get delay. That's what I can promise you. And if there's any one thing I've heard tonight, it's expedite. And so I would hope everybody takes that into consideration, that there is a mechanism to override their recommendation. Whether it's good or bad, we could do it, but it would delay the project. And I'm probably, I mean, Commissioner, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the legislation would be considered, you know, if it were my bill, it would be considered in March, then it would go to the House, then the governor would have to sign it, assuming I could get it passed. We'd be into 2020, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly right. You're absolutely right. And one of the other things as far as our position on this, while we had advocated for a signaled intersection, when the department came through with a plan for a roundabout, it was a very expedited plan. You need to understand, this wasn't in the 10-year plan. This is a special project done outside of that with federal money. So at that point, we went along with it for the simple reason that we don't want to slow down the solution down there. And if the solution is determined to be the roundabout, which again, I am now convinced is the best plan, we absolutely did not want to slow it down. If anything, we want to work with whoever we can to speed it up. Based on the show of hands, Martha, do you have any qualms?
No, I agree with you.
We will craft a letter if it's helpful at all, that it is going to be the position of the town of Ossipee to embrace the roundabout and to do whatever we can do to work with you and our elected officials to expedite that. I do hope that you will take into consideration the comments that were made tonight and the recommendations that were made tonight. I trust that you will, based on your having listened to us already. So I thank you very much for being here. I am sincerely thankful for all of the efforts that you've made down there today. I really am.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate it.
We shouldn't leave here without having something be at least on the board for tomorrow. If they were able to put in rumble strips, take out a passing lane, we could at least set the intersection up as a construction zone with Jersey barriers on both sides that gently make the traffic calm itself to a stop sign on both sides. So use the construction zone, because we're going to be construction, we should be doing, and we can do that now. We don't have to do it next year. And we can argue about the roundabout all we want. But what I don't like to hear is, and I'm sure you heard it, we have an environmental impact statement that has to be made. It has to go to a bunch of people for the environment. You have DES. This is all federal money. The reason why you have to watch your federal grant money is because there's strings attached to it. In order for them to give you that money, you have to do things. And there's regulations. There has got to be a way to, in this specific case, to eliminate the regulation for getting an environmental impact statement for that intersection. There's got to be a way to do it in an emergency situation. If it takes our governor and all the entire House and the Senate, I'm sure the president can tell the agency to put aside the regulation temporarily just for this one intersection. I know that I'm part of the, I'm not Lakes Region Planning Commission, I'm Stratford Regional, and I'm sure there is some method to eliminate that review, to speed the roundabout up.
We'll get it speeded up. I don't believe the environmental impact statement or the environmental documentation is on the critical path to getting it done. It is an impediment, like I said, we cannot formally make an offer to spend federal money to buy property until we have that environmental document. But we can certainly meet, like I said, with the property owners, explain to them the plans, see if they have any concerns, so that when we do have the environmental document, we are in a position to move right ahead with those offers and work with the property owners. So the other thing you said about making it a construction zone, that does not work in the winter. It does not work during winter construction season.
How are we going to
that's one of the problems, to have barrels or cones or barrier out there.
Just a quick follow-up. When you say it's not going to work, what are the barriers to making that not work?
It's to have temporary things out there in the road during winter maintenance, during plowing and things like that. They're incompatible a lot of times. I mean, when we have to do it, when we have construction sites going on through the winter, we have contractors that are responsible for picking up the barrels and doing the snow removal and things like that. So that would be the concern with the putting, like I said, making a construction zone or putting concrete barriers or things out there during the winter maintenance season.
2019, November.
One more. Just one more.
So how
What's frustrating to me is you're saying that you can't do it. What are the barriers? You're telling me there's some document somewhere that says that you cannot use barriers of any kind or cones in the winter. What is actually stopping you from doing it? That's what I want to understand. We say we want that area to be a construction zone with a four-way stop where everybody slows down. You're telling me the only barrier to doing that is that somebody is not going to like to remove snow from the area. Is that what you're saying?
They can't plow in the winter with those up.
Thank you. It's very difficult to plow and maintain the road. I mean, that's more of a safety issue, I think, having piles of snow and ice in the road than
November 19th.
But we can, I know you guys have to vote, I mean, we'll stick around and we can talk here.
Just contradicting
But no, you're
yourself.
contradicting yourself because you're saying you can't do it in the winter, you can't put the barriers up, but yet you're wanting to start all this construction in November. Guess what? November's,
2019
November's,
is the date.
you know, snow.
No.
They're looking to have it done in 2019.
No, the schedule that Mike said when he said November 2019, that's when we could possibly advertise it based on that schedule. That would be problematic. That would mean that construction wouldn't start until the following spring. So that's why we need to get it expedited and move it up so we can get construction started. So even if it advertised, we advertised and awarded it to a contractor over the winter, they wouldn't be able to start until the following
So
spring.
no matter what, even if we try to push it sooner, it's still not be done this winter.
No, he's saying
No.
you're going to start in the summer of 19.
What summer? The spring.
Spring, summer of 19.
November is planning for the spring coming.
Exactly, that's right. I did.
Thank you very much all for
No,
coming.
it's-
I appreciate it. They appreciate it, and thank you. Thank you, Jim. No, that's fine. We'll get you all the letter. We will. And then anything that you can do to
Do those have a remote?
Yes, those have a remote. They have a remote.
Excuse me all. Excuse me. If you want to visit, if you could just take it out into the hallway so we can finish up the rest of our meeting. It's all right. Thank you.
I have one for the budget committee, you have for the budget committee. I printed one just in case for.
Well, I figured I'd give one each.
And then I brought one together, drop it in the budget committee box.
All right. We can move along to the rest of our meeting. Before we finish up with that, then we're going to have Ellen compile a letter to our elected representatives with our recommendation to move full steam ahead with the roundabout and to expedite it in any way possible. Right?
Excellent, good idea.
And you wanted to address the local reps?
Yes, and Jeff Bradley. Yeah. And that'll include, yes, and also include Joe Kenton and the government rep. All right, public input. Anybody?
My name is Kevin Miller. I was participating in the auction that occurred for the real estate back on the 21st. Wondering if this is a good time to talk about that now. I know you discussed the deeded auction results. I could discuss that now. Or,
go ahead.
Okay. I get involved because, first of all, I'm a resident. And there was property over on White's Pond Road. It was 18 Cottage. It was part of supposedly three pieces that were going up for auction. And due to tax issues, the owner, the trustee of the three properties, did not make payment on those. I believe she was in contact with the selectmen themselves multiple times. It's Elaine Ramsdale. And so I was working with her, trying to see what we could do. I don't know the fine details of what transpired, but she still has an interest in redeeming that. I did win the auction for the 18 Cottage Road. Then there was another gentleman who was also a waterfront owner. He won the auction for the large rod strip, the 2,000-foot rod. The other rod strip that was ownership by Elaine and the trustee, that was improperly listed and it was pulled from the auction. So apparently she still, I talked with Ellen, she still has ownership of that, or the town has ownership of that. And I asked whether it'd still be possible for her to redeem the taxes on that. And I believe, did you say that?
She can put in
She
a
could do
request
that,
for
okay.
it.
So the issue comes down, I have ownership in 30 days if I go forward and purchase the property, which is still a process. I talked with Karen over at Sager, over at the attorney office. And I asked her as far as the name that goes on that deed, does it have to be my name? And she said, no, it could be anybody. It could be a joint one. I'm interested in helping Elaine as far as getting that property back. Now, my understanding is that when I pay the fee for the property, there is obviously money that goes toward the previous taxes and other fees that are involved with that. And then the excess fee, excess funds that come from the sale of that property would go back to the trust Elaine manages. Granted, we can go through the whole process of doing that and whatnot. I'd like to simplify the process and simply have her essentially give me the funds somehow, some way, because I have whatnot, or it could be back to the town some way. It's going to get paid one way or another.
Yeah, but this is the problem with what it seems as though you're suggesting. Mm-hmm. There are extremely strictly written RSAs for how the town behaves and what we have done. And what we have done has been completely legal. The reason we hire an outside auctioneer is for that very reason, so that we can literally step aside, let the law and it take its course. Right. There is a process. Mm-hmm. When we sell a property, which we have had for less than 3 years, that there is a process by which the previous owner can apply for and try to purchase and pay the penalties and everything else. Even that has time limits, mm-hmm. which in this case were not followed. What you choose to do as a winning bidder and returning the land, that quite frankly is none of our business, and I say bully for you. But to suggest that there might be some other way, we're bound by law and are very, very, very careful with legal counsel to make sure that we dot our I's, cross our T's for obvious reasons. I can tell you that we, as a matter of habit, absolutely detest taking anybody's property for taxes. That's not anything that any one of us relishes at all. We don't do it for the most part on owner-occupied primary residences. We jump through hoops, we do backflips, working out payment arrangements to not have to take somebody's primary home. At the same time, it's been a policy of this board for the last several years that we will not enter into payment arrangements for second homes or vacant land. And I think that there's probably some pretty sound rationale for that. If you have vacant land, pay your taxes. If you have a second home, pay your taxes. Mm-hmm. It's not fair to the rest of us who do for somebody not to. So when they get to that 3 years, they either pay and they're notified again of what they have to pay, or they are subject to losing their property, which is what happened in this case.
You know, Ellen actually mentioned to me that there have been properties that have been sold back to the town that people have bought, and it's been less than the actual tax that was owed on the property.
No.
Did you actually?
What's that?
They're not sold back to the prior owner. The prior owner is responsible for the back tax and the 10% assessment penalty if it's not their primary residence.
Right.
The only time that it would go for less than the tax that was due is if it was auctioned and sold for less.
Right. And I believe you said that happened one time or two. So the town obviously loses money in that circumstance.
It's a gamble.
Right.
Sometimes it makes out.
So I guess the question is, when that transfer occurs, when I do submit the funds for that, how long does it take before Elaine, the trust, would receive the excess funds? Is there a time limit?
That's all handled through the closing that takes place through the legal office.
Yeah.
I think they have to file an interpleader with the Superior Court, and that's the way that happens. It's all done.
Okay. So I need to work with the Sager law firm in order to try to expedite that situation. All right. Very good.
Anything else under public input? Okay. Who's going to do budget now?
Should.
Okay. Yeah, we're running a little long, so we're going to deviate from our order a little bit. do some budget reviews as they're here. We have, for this schedule for the night, we've got the Selectmen's office. The budget, 2018 adopted budget was $732,273. The 2019 proposed is $741,825, or a difference of 1.3%. There's a $11,000 increase in the health insurance line item. Our health insurance did in fact take a 10% jump. Considering it went down the 2 years before that, I guess we can't complain too strenuously. There's a $3,000 increase in the assessor's office, and $1,000 in computer maintenance. Really represents the only 3 increases of any significance in the entire budget, and there have been several decreases. Do you have any questions, Sam? I make a motion we put forward the amount of $741,825.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Got the Conservation Commission budget. Is anybody here from the Conservation Commission? No. The 2018 adopted was $11,800. The proposed is $12,032, a difference of $232. I make a motion we put forward the amount of $12,032. All in favor? Aye. You have the Planning Board budget, which is 2018 adopted at $35,634. 2019 proposed at $36,378, difference of $744 or 2.9%. $744.
That's gotta be in salaries.
Correct. Yeah, there was taxes.
$200 increase in postage.
Correct.
I make a motion we put forward the amount of $36,378. All in favor? Aye. ZBA had a 2018 operating of $13,489. A proposed 2019 of $17,553, a difference of $4,064. Anybody here from the ZBA? I can explain it because we worked with them on it. The current a portion of the board secretary that was allotted to them was $5,500. That's being up to $7,500. Consequently, all of the employee costs with that go up a little bit. And they increased their advertising from $1,700 to $2,500 based on the fact that more building projects which have been going on, and as of October we already spent $1,845 on a $1,700 budget. There's also a $450 increase in postage. Again, with more projects means more expenses. So.
And that money comes in on the revenue side.
And that does come back in on the revenue side, anything that we spend for those. Correct. Any questions? I make a motion we put forward the amount at this juncture of $17,553 for
Second.
ZBA. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Trustee of Trust Funds had a 2018 adopted of $6,862. A proposed 2019 is $7,062, a difference of $200, and that $200 increase is under supplies.
On the computer, which Alan and I have been discussing, and I guess with the planning board and the ZBA, conservation and trustees are not in that town package, if I'm correct.
Correct.
So we have to put forth our own, and that's where that $200, you can't buy a computer today for $8.
No.
So that's what.
I make a motion we put forward the amount of $7,062 for trustee of trust funds. All in favor? Aye. Police Department. We have a 2018 adopted of $1,156,014. A proposed 2019 of $1,240,278. A difference of $84,264. Chief.
Well, the biggest increase is going to be in the part-time specials salary.
And the reason for that is I'd like to look at hiring 2 part-timers next year. One will serve the purpose that Chief Eldridge was trying to pursue of a prosecutor, to work for us a couple days a week in a part-time capacity. That would essentially give us a full-time sergeant back out on the road. And the second one would be to fill in vacant shifts that we need covered, due to an officer being out on a special assignment for another year or so. So that was the big increase there. And then as we went down, overtime, $5,000 increase in that, where with the generous overtime, the generous earned time plan that the town has gone to now, we have officers that are off, and it's sometimes difficult to fill those shifts. So we're pretty much out of the overtime now, and to add a little more to it, I think would be good. Computer maintenance, I went up, I think, $1,500 on that. That will connect us with the software we have now. That will connect us to what they call the Super Hub, which will connect us with law enforcement from here to Boston for information sharing with the MDTs, the computer systems we have in the computers now. It's really the last piece to the puzzle for the software system that the prior chief was setting up for us. And also with that new software comes a yearly payment of $3,400 to IMC or TriTech. So it accounts for that also, because that fee has now gone up to run the software in the computers. Let's see, and then I dropped our postage down a couple $100, just we still got quite a bit left in that. Building maintenance, I'd like to add $1,000 to that. We had a bunch of Olympic gym equipment donated to us, and some of it's starting to wear out, and I'd like to start replacing that where it was free for us to get. And obviously physical fitness is a key part of this job. They're required to pass, I'm going to institute yearly PT tests. Let's see, the gasoline I dropped $3,000. In training, I added $500 to the training line, simply because I want to start sending my supervisors to more leadership schools, which they're not free anymore. The leadership schools that the academy used to offer are virtually non-existent at this point, and when they do put them out, we sign up for them and they cancel them because they don't get enough. So their FBI puts on classes and things like that I'd like to start sending them to, and those are fees. So that's why I upped that a little bit. But the biggest jump is in the part-time line.
Okay. Any questions? No. We've obviously had a chance to go over a lot of this ourselves. At this juncture, I'm going to put forward, I make a motion, we put forward the amount of $1,240,278. You can eat the 70 cents.
No. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Right.
We'll hand deliver 2 letters, I don't take care of that. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. The special duty pay, I think we all know, it's $25,000 level funded.
Level funded.
That's just a case that gives an account to reimburse for special duty. Any money that comes in, or any money that is expended more than that comes back in as a revenue. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have...
I was like, say where's the motion?
there was a motion in there, I know you heard it.
Where's my second?
I got it.
Thank you.
All right. Dog officer's budget was proposed last year at $16,998. 2019, we have it down, it's still at $16,998. Is that correct?
The only thing I'm going to do is the wages is $12,600, just to go up a little. I've been very busy with this town this year, which I'm very shocked with. So far I've had 185 calls.
Okay.
Besides that, I have to do the reports, and then if I have any investigations I have to do with, like if I have a cruelty case or anything like that, that takes more time. So that's why I only just went up, $600 for the year. But everything else is the same.
We just haven't had an opportunity to discuss with you increasing it, because we did increase it a lot last year.
Yes, we did.
A lot.
Yes.
I think it went from 7,000 to 12.
Yeah.
Just looking at what we haven't spent, we haven't.
Is that 1,500 for Humane Society a given? Is that going to be spent by the end of the year?
It stays there until we need it. The only thing I was thinking of is, I know that we budget it every year. I wasn't sure if we could like put it aside, because if we have an emergency case or something like that, it'd be nice to be able to fall back on some other money instead of, you know, having to think, you know, like what you guys went through with this abuse case that you had to spend all that money on.
Are you looking to encumber it? Is that what you're?
Is that what, just to, you know, I don't know if you can do this. I mean, so like we plan it every year for 1,500. If we don't use it, put it in a separate account and leave it there. I don't know if the town can do something like that.
We can. I'm not convinced we.
I'm just saying.
I'm not convinced we need to. We have
Okay.
a $6.5 million operating budget, so
Right.
$1,500.
Okay. It was just a thought that,
Fairness
you know,
doesn't-
maybe
doesn't-
that, you know.
I'm going to make a motion that we level fund it at $16,998. I believe if we do decide, we need to sit down and talk with you about your wages. If you're looking for an increase, we need to have that conversation, and we haven't had that yet.
Okay.
I believe even if we do give you the $600 that you're asking for, there's more than enough within the current budget to do that. So I'm going to make a motion that we put forward for the purposes of the budget committee, the number of $16,998.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And if we can set up a time, Ellen, we can meet with her and we discuss whether or not we want to recommend you for an increase, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. We have the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Monday, October 22nd. I make a motion we approve them as written. All in favor? I shouldn't have joked about losing my voice. I'm actually starting to lose my voice, so. The minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Monday, October 22nd, I make a motion we accept it as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have the check voucher totals. Payroll for week ending 10/27 was $46,165.59. We had accounts payable for week ending 10/22 of $14,626.04 for a total disbursed of $60,791.63. We also had water and sewer accounts payable, which we tracked separately in the amount of $3,609.35. I'll make a motion to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we back up real quick? We have the fire precincts here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They weren't on yours because normally the selectmen do.
I didn't mean to hold.
Well, we were told by the budget committee to present to the selectmen today and to leave a copy of our budget in the box for the budget committee also, so that they would have the first presentation.
I'm not aware, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Well, I just wanted to give everybody a copy of this. Our budget actually went down. $15,000 this year.
Major reason for that is we've finally, this year, we'll be paying off the last of the bond for the construction of the Jewel Hill building. We can't technically call it a fire station because it does not have a
Sprinkler
system in it.
Working on it.
We have a $16,000 increase in payroll due to
about a 30% increase in call volume. So far, everybody's is the same way. Some of the savings that we were going to incur by paying off the building are offset by that, but ultimately we're about $15,000 less than last year.
And we have less in the vehicle maintenance because we'll be replacing our engine 2 with a mini pumper that we'll take delivery on in early 2019. So we basically did the bare minimum for the maintenance on the vehicle prior to retiring it, and anticipating a brand new vehicle not needing much other than the 2 inspections and some minor equipment during the course of the year. And we also realized a over $4,000 savings in our overall insurance.
Quick, but do you have to have a charge system in that building?
Yes, it would be the same system that you would normally have in a building like this. The big difference is the school across the street is on a public water supply. The biggest cost now for us is the water supply. We actually put the plumbing in the building 2 years ago, which was about $19,000. The $100,000 is just for the, it's about $100,000 to get the water tank constructed, and about another $50,000 for the pump that goes on top of it. So our plan going forward is, we had planned on doing that. Obviously we had to buy a new fire truck in the interim. So when we get through paying for the fire truck, we'll address the sprinkler system again. And as long as we have a plan in place, the fire marshal's office is okay with it. We've got a 3-phase plan in place to take care of that. So going forward, in another 3 years, we'll start.
The drawing system no longer meets the requirement?
No. No, it's got to be a fully compliant system. So it should have been put in when the building was constructed, but it would have added another $150,000 to the cost of the building, and they decided not to do it. So
they could have built a smaller building, put a sprinkler system in, and had the total project completed.
So
yeah, I just always wondered about the logic of requiring a metal building, but you know, I mean, I know.
Well, the problem is it's just metal clad. It's a wooden frame, and the standard that was in place when the building was constructed called for it. So, and obviously, we need to be the example of being in compliance, because we forced those others that are required to have it. So. But it'll get done. It just get way late, about 3 years. But,
and the purchase of the mini pumper is twofold. One, to replace, of course, a retiring piece of equipment, but it's also downsized, so it's more practical in four-wheel drive, so we can get into places like the backside of Connor Pond. We can get into different places up around Danhole Pond and some of these other places in town that are within our precinct and outside of our precinct. And it's a lower cost, and it's a lease purchase that in 2021, it'll be paid off.
The first year's payment, which is next year, is coming out of capital reserve, and it'd be 3 payments of about $58,000 a year for the next 3 years. So something that I've been pushing for about 15 years, and obviously when things changed, we were able to not write off, but get something that's a benefit, something that we've needed for a while.
You better think about that the second time, because you cannot take capital reserve, I believe, for a lease payment.
It's not. It's actually for the down payment. It's a down payment on it.
It's a down
Lease
payment.
purchase.
Now,
I'll just term that. A lease purchase today is nothing really more than what was a traditional finance.
It says it can't have a
escape
clause, which
we went through DRA on
which it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's the same company that everybody else is using to finance stuff. We did the homework on it. So, but anyways, I know we're not required to. However, it's a courtesy to you as the Board of Selectmen, so you know what's going on. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you. You could put that in the budget. Are you going to copy for the budget committee?
I'll keep this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I did, but I didn't. No, I didn't say you were wrong.
Well, no,
I just.
It's gonna be a late dinner.
Do you want a cookie? We have plenty to share.
They're not bad.
They're delicious.
They're not bad.
Cookies.
Huh?
They're cookies.
Ed, one cookie?
Can't eat it, gluten.
Oh. Do I look like I have an eating problem? I'm gonna die fat, but I'm gonna die happy. I know. You have the payroll reimbursement request for water and sewer in the amount of $2,616.30. I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We finally have a municipal sidewalk agreement between us and the state of New Hampshire, which is a required agreement to move forward with our construction of sidewalks here in the village. Everybody's had a chance to read it. I make a motion that we sign it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. There's 2 copies, one for us, one for them.
Yeah, but we'll send both copies to them, have them sign it too, and we'll end up with one in our record.
Yep. Notice from our tax collector, they will be testing the AccuVote machines. The testing will be here October 30th at 11 a.m. in the town clerk's office. This is for the election to be held on November 6th. We have a notice of intent to cut wood. This is on map 135, lot 24 and 25, and map 267, lot 3. They're both on Route 171. 56 acres to be cut. Taxes have been paid. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a contract for use of facilities for the Friends of Chickville.
It's for the church.
Oh, there you go. And it's to use the Chickville Church for 12/16 and 5/19, 2 dates. Schedule's been okayed. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a letter from the Department of some dread. It's been brought to their attention that the timber sale contract for the timber harvest at the Heath Pond Natural Bog area misidentified the town of Ossipee when in fact the harvest is in the town of Effingham. R.C. McLucas Trucking holds the contract, filed an intent to cut with Ossipee and paid the anticipated timber tax in advance as required by RSA 79.3. And evidently DRA has been notified of the situation and instructed R.C. McLucas to report a cut for Ossipee with 0 volume so that the timber tax may be returned in its entirety, and then R.C. McLucas Trucking will also file the appropriate intent to cut with the town of Effingham. Evidently, we issued an intent to cut on property that's in Effingham. They just let us
in
know.
Ossipee, they're just not cutting on the Ossipee.
Correct.
section.
Yeah. We have a notice of intent to excavate. This is at Moultonville Road. Jeff Kelly. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Less than 1,000 cubic yards. We have a contract for use of facilities for the MKDF dance team. Use the town hall gym on 118. Schedule's been okayed. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Also another one, same group, for February 1st and 2nd, using the gym. Schedule's been okayed. I make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We have a petition and poll license. This is from Public Service. This is on near Frost Road off Ossipee Lake Drive. Make a motion we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have 3 copies of it. We have a notification, just, we'll put it up on the bulletin board, that there's now what's called the coat closet, which is down at the White Horse Thrift Store. It's a closet built onto the side of the building. Will contain warm clothing for the coming winter months. It's not a drop-off area. It's for anybody that's in need of warm clothing. There's a closet there for you. We have a group which has, that was here, a gentleman was here last week. Regarding a dog park, we have received a letter which I haven't honestly had a chance to read. Have you?
No.
But they're forming a committee to try to establish a dog park at Constitution Park. We just got this. I haven't had a chance to read it, and I'd like to before we make anything. So we'll table that till next week. We have the 2018 Equalization Municipal Assessment Data Certificate, something we have to file with DRA. Make a motion to sign it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The tax deeded property auction results, total generated was $343,100. That is not the amount that will ultimately come to the town, because in this case, some of the properties which we had not owned for more than 3 years, an exceed of the proceeds will in fact go back to the previous owner. What it actually generated was $343,100. We had a note from Bruce DeVitum. A question last week was regarding the revenue from the incinerator. We took in $69,227,000 off the scale, and in recyclables, $34,724, for a total of $103,952.
What's the date? From when to when?
And it's not dated.
As
of October 28th.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
We have a copy of a check from Northeast Recovery, amount of $1,887.72. This is on recyclables, it's on fibers and scrap metal. We have a notice from Charter Communication about upcoming changes. It seems as though we have one here every week, if anybody'd like to look at it. We have the Highway Department work log, which is here in the folder, if anybody'd like to look at it. We asked Brad to go over the fuel bids and make some recommendations, and he's done them in a side-by-side comparison. Based on it, he makes some recommendation that we go with heating oil, CM Brown at $2.60.9 per gallon. Diesel fuel, CM Brown at $2.74.9 a gallon. Propane Suburban at $1.65 a gallon. And for gasoline, CM Brown at rack plus 22 cents per gallon. He's got the side-by-sides here. Sam, I know you met with him and have some expertise in that area. Martha, do you have any questions?
No, that's good.
Sam?
Yep.
I make a motion that we award the fuel bid,
Oil, diesel, and gas.
oil and gas and propane bid to those as is recommended by a Public Works Director as being the best bidders.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. That's just the
Oh, that's just,
correspondence.
yeah.
Thank you.
Right, anything new on the sidewalks? We did that. That's the last step that we needed.
Well, it is to get sidewalk park constructed. There's still an issue with the crosswalks. We haven't got the final approval on that. But talking with Alan over at District 3 in Guilford there, said there's no problem separating those two issues out, so we can go ahead with the sidewalks. We can start getting our pricing in, get those locked in, while we still figure out if we don't come to an agreement on the crosswalk, it just won't be a crosswalk where we're proposing it, that's all. But it won't affect the sidewalks at all. Yep.
So we've got the design, we now have the maintenance agreement. What is stopping you from now going and putting that out to bid?
Nothing.
Okay, so we're gonna have that ready to go out.
We already started contacting the people that we approached for bids earlier this fall, to notify them of what we did, what we're doing. So the ones that declined to give a price because they're too busy, is gonna be opened up for them to come back to us again. So that's in the process right now. So you should be seeing this fall, we'll be seeing all the bids come in. I don't have a set date to have them done by, but this fall we'll have them all in to review and approve, so, yep.
Anything you want to cover, Bridge?
Yeah, a little bit, not a lot. As I mentioned last week, Thursday I was at a DOT all day to a training class, and I got to speak briefly with the DOT about, that's in charge of our covered bridge project, but with all the class going on and stuff, they were tied up. He did promise that he would take time this week to sit down and with a phone conversation at least and go over where we're at with it to see what the steps are to get this out to bid and stuff. Everything's in compliance with them. I know one of their things they held off towards the end of summer and stuff was that their excuse was, I found out, was that the federal fiscal year starts October 1st. They wanted to get to that point before authorizing the money from the federal, because the grant is the biggest part of that. They're $680,000 of that project there for this next phase, last phase. So those are some of the details we're going to talk and work out and get this thing out to, I'm really hoping, I anticipate seeing this go out to bid very soon, I was going to say the end of the month, which is Wednesday, but that's not going to happen, but I'd say within the next couple of weeks we'd be looking at putting this out to bid and getting everything lined up so we can start in the spring. Fingers crossed.
Fingers, toes, legs, yeah. Okay. Anything else, Brett?
Nope. That covers it.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah.
Meeting with me earlier.
Second public input, anybody?
Connie.
Couple things. One, last week, you told Brad to look into that culvert, 26,000.
Yeah.
Well, right now, you got $304 in that account.
Okay.
You passed the 20,000, which we'll get at the end of the year. But the fund is for the purpose of future bridge replacements and repairs. Culvert doesn't cover.
I'm not going to argue the point with you, Connie. The fact of the matter is how do you define what is a bridge? How do you define bridge?
Well,
what I laughingly said is it's a hole under the road that water flows through. So.
I mean, I'm just going by what the town
I understand.
has.
I understand. But I don't think if it came to it that would be anything untoward. But
I mean, it's easy enough to fix by just changing the capital reserve mark. The other thing, we've got a solid waste and a solid waste facility capital reserves. One is for funding equipment, the other is for improvements at the solid waste. I suggest that we combine them and make one.
I'm not opposed to that. We might give that a call to DRA. Because at one point, DRA made us, I'm going back to now when I was at the precinct, they did not like capital reserve funds that had too wide a description. They wanted them very, very specific. And they wouldn't let us do, for instance, we wanted to include on our vehicles maintenance, because if you lost a motor in a fire truck and it was going to be $10,000, they wouldn't allow it. They wanted the descriptions drawn very, very narrowly. So I'm not opposed to putting them together, but you might check to make sure that it's going to be allowed.
One was passed in 2001, the other was in 2004. For what reason, I don't know.
How much money is in them?
Right now, solid waste has 28,870. Solid waste improvements is 38,000 for a total of 67.
Okay. You familiar with them?
I am, yeah. I didn't know how much was in them, but I knew there were two separate ones. And the same reason you know, I didn't know why we had them separated out back in the day, but, you know.
I know the area at one point was real stickler about not having the descriptions drawn too close, but I'm not opposed to them.
Isn't a portion of that money tied up in a CD though?
Quite a bit of it, but I mean, that's nothing. All you lose is your last 6 months' interest if you got a break. One of them has got, both of them have got approximately 28,000 in the capital, in the CDs. And improvements has got 10. So, and I can withdraw the interest without penalty. And you're talking interest on, it was about $400 interest this year.
You know, you're thinking, I mean, not knowing what they were, wondered what they were intended for when they were established, and they've been sitting around. They haven't been used then at all for years, neither one of them. So why don't we look at whatever upcoming projects that we've got at the solid waste and you know, try to utilize those funds and get those wound down.
We do have one project we're looking to extend where the recyclables get dumped in there, or now we have the cardboard and the glass go when they're open, you know, no roof over them at all. We wanted to extend that other structure over those 2 bays. Problem is we couldn't get any bids in this year. I got one bid in, and that was it. So it's, you know, it's been tough getting contractors to come up. So yeah. So we'll try to push that again. We'll get through another winter. We'll try to push it again in the spring and see if we can get some bids in on it. Get that one project anyway. Just have some of that.
Okay. Connie, do we have a, I don't know, do you have a list from Connie of all of the accounts and whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
He gives me one when I request it.
Send me one day, I need a copy for the budget committee. There you go. Oh, Ellen and I worked, she requests it, she gets it, real quick.
Well, it should be. Keep you on your toes. Any other public input?
The boat ramp over at West Pond,
Yep.
where does that stand? Is it dead? Is it a dead issue?
Good question. I haven't heard anything about why.
I met with Joe Kenny 2 weeks ago now, and he said that it's still one of those very convoluted issues where, you know, everybody's passing the bucket, whose ownership it actually is. I believe that they were going to push it off to the new economic, whatever, the resource, Cultural Natural Resources Division.
But it's needed to a particular group, the state of New Hampshire.
It's state of New Hampshire DOT, but the division's defunct, so. Somehow the language says that it's supposed to be the town's responsibility to maintain it, but there's no agreement on file anywhere that states that. So, as of right now, status quo.
As far as, I guess there's concern of salt and whatnot being delayed based on plowing.
I think we reviewed that with Jeff Blacharczyk from DES. Brad and I met with him on site in April.
Yeah.
I believe it was, and he went over the snow removal process, and there wasn't any issues that were presented at that time.
How far
gravel roads.
How far back? The whole road is?
The whole road is no salt use on.
Oh, okay, so
all the way up to Granite Road where the salt stops. Yeah.
Anything else? Ed?
Just really quick. The boat ramp. Were you asking about the boat ramp because of the access issue that we had recently? Or was
just the deterioration is, you know, it's crumbling, the asphalt. It's just, you know, I don't know. I used it one time and there was a big drop off where the concrete or the asphalt fell away from, you know, the sand and whatnot fell away. So, you know, it's some type of liability there. If somebody, you know, drives over it and breaks an axle, I don't know.
Well, about the access that we had, the issue of the access, there will have to be legislation put in to tell Fish and Game to look at that situation differently than how they look at it now. By that sign saying no swimming, and then people are getting confused.
Oh, no, he's talking about, he's talking about the one at White Pond, which is the one where the state tried to make us file it after the fact.
Oh,
You're talking about
I'm
the
talking
Connor
about
Pond.
the other, I'm talking
Yeah.
about Connor Pond, okay.
Yeah.
So that entire strip is actually, according to the town map, is 100 feet long. There is a fence that is essentially sectioning off that area. I assume the state owns that fence. Maybe the property owner decided to extend their fence, over far enough so that even the people coming in. There's still a lot of people coming from the campground coming in. I ran into a situation one time where I had to get my boat out, and there were people very upset that I was trying to restrain my boat during their time at the waterfront. It was a very uncomfortable situation.
My other comment would be, there needs to be legislation on how to control political signs. These political signs, regardless of whose side you're on or what side they're all over the place. And they're not even, it doesn't even look like they thought about where they're putting it. There should be no political signs in the intersections. When you're coming into an intersection, just like on 28-171, which thank God they didn't put too many there, you look right and left. You've got to read about 10, 15 signs all the way down on both sides.
It's very distracting.
Decide what you're doing, and God forbid if one of those signs is blocking your sight line, depending. So there should be a rule that you should not, I can't be bothered, I'm actually saying that. There should be a rule that there should not be any political signs in the intersections, period.
Yeah. And the only way to define that is you're going to have to do like within 150 feet of any intersecting road or something. Because 60 and 28, I think it's crazy. It's distracting. And then it's not somebody putting up one sign, it's somebody putting up 6 signs to the same person on every side of the intersection.
I think there's a rule as far as the size of the sign.
They shouldn't be in the intersection. There's enough distraction already. We have enough distracted drivers without doing that.
We had mentioned not to put the signs on 28 and 171. We had just asked people to, no rules, no nothing. We just said, please don't put them in that intersection. And for the most part, it's been pretty clear. But maybe we need to put it out there in the newspaper that if you're trying to get yourself elected, why don't you come to meetings? Why don't you, come to meetings, and don't just stick your signs all over the place thinking that's going to get you elected.
I'm not gonna vote for you to get 20 signs in 20 feet. If
It's
you're
just-
that insecure.
I just worry about the sight lines, because at some point somebody's going to put a sign right in that spot, and and it should.
I just worry about the distraction, period.
You have to have the property owner's permission.
Not in the right of way.
Not if it's in the right of way.
If the state owns it.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, did you ask the state to put your sign there?
They allow it.
They allow it.
The statute allows you to keep it in the right of way. I'm saying it should be in the, you can put it in the right of way, but don't put it in the intersections. You have to make enough decisions in an intersection, now you got to decide who you're going to vote for. So, that's it.
Would the town be more restrictive on that?
No, not on state highway. Anybody have anything else? I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.